Sunday, June 24th. Once again, I'm in New Hampshire. This time, going to be hiking Mount Pierce and Mount Eisenhower. For a full hike review of Mount Pierce and Mount Eisenhower, check the link below. So, obviously with Juno today, Jackie's sitting this one out. It's not really her cup of tea. So it's a little overcast, calls for rain today, so we're gonna hope to get both done. But I think I'm gonna start with Eisenhower. So basically what that means is that I'm gonna be hiking up a old road for a while. You'll see it in like 2 seconds here. So if you're doing Mount Pierce, you can do just Mount Pierce and come down. There's a couple different trails on the way up, and I'll have a map on the full length below. If you're doing Eisenhower, there's actually 2 different parking areas. So you could park a little bit farther east and avoid this 2-mile road hike, but trying to kind of end on a mountain and not the road, which is why I'm going over to Eisenhower first. The road used to be open, now it's closed, so you just kind of have to deal with it. The nice thing about the White Mountains, for a lot of you who watch from my Colorado mountain reviews, the White Mountains are really, really good. Juno, no grass. Are really, really good at connecting. So if you want to backpack, if you wanted to hike multiple mountains, if you just want to peak bag and get as many as you can, you really can do that here, which is pretty cool. Unlike Colorado, where it's kind of tough to link multiple mountains together via an official trail. Obviously you can do it kind of making your own route, but Juno, she loves to eat the grass today, but it's not easy, as easy to do it as here, which is really cool. After about 2.18 miles of walking, we are at the Edmunds Path Trailhead here. So looking back at the road, it's pretty mellow, only a couple of 100 feet of elevation gain, and really not too bad as far as roads go. So here's a look at what we're doing. So I just parked down here, and instead of going right up to Pierce, I walked Mount Clinton's Road, and now I'm heading up to Mount Eisenhower, taking Crawford Path to Pierce, and then back down. Looks like blue is going to be the trail marks for this one. Juno's ready to rip. Hopefully we can beat the rain today. First real stream crossing here. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that bridge is not supposed to be there. It probably should be somewhere over here. This just goes to show you the level of snow melt around here and how powerful it can be. So just kind of use caution. I'm honestly not 100% sure where the trail is. I think it's over there. So I'll figure that out shortly here. But as you can see, first little obstacle of the day. Right around 4 miles right now. You might be able to tell we're already in the clouds, which kind of sucks. Everything's pretty wet, which also kind of sucks. It's humid, which also kind of sucks. But outside enjoying nature, so that's good. The trail has been pretty steady incline. Right now we're at about 3,500 feet, so like 1,200 to go, and we still have another 1.2 miles or so at least. So not too bad, just slow going because it's humid, and this rock is slippery, so gotta be careful. But Juno's having a good time. This is a good showcase of how deadly the weather can be up here. Only 3,700 feet or so, and clearly there's a lot of winds here. Heavy snow, something that knocked all these trees down. Luckily, Forest Service came and cleared off the path, but I mean, you can kind of tell it's been a nightmare getting through this. If you've ever hiked the White Mountains before, you'll recognize this view. And it's basically just a pile of rocks that look like steps working their way up through a thick forest. If I've seen this trail once, I've seen it a million times here. It's funny how there's just so much similarity between the terrain and the trails and who made them, obviously. This reminds me of so many hikes I've done here. And if you haven't hiked here, expect this. It's kind of monotonous, but so are switchbacks, so, you know, it's all kind of means to an end. All right, This may seem excessive, but definitely needs to be talked about. So you'll see these signs on most trails in the White Mountains. And basically it's telling you, at this point, the weather's shitty, or even if it looks like it's gonna be shitty, turn around. The reason is, just like kind of like Colorado, where you leave tree line, you get to a certain elevation, and it's just totally different. It's exactly the same here. So, I'll give you a look around. We're in a cloud right now, so I can't tell what the weather's gonna be like. Now, granted, I know the forecast today, so it's gonna be pretty mellow. Maybe some rain later, but if this were the winter, let's say, or fall, really anytime, that could be snow in the summer too, it can get really crazy up here. As you can see, the visibility is not much. Yes, we're in the trees, so you can see everything right now, but shortly we're going to leave the trees here, and I'll show you what it's going to look like up there. And put in some bad weather, it's very easy to get lost. So just kind of take a evaluation when you reach that point of any trail and make a call, just like you would with lightning, weather, anything else. When you reach this point right here, you'll have a bunch of options. Now, if you're coming from Mount Eisenhower, you'd be going down this way. In this case, we're coming from here and going over this way. I mentioned these earlier, but now you can see them. These big cairns are along basically all the trails up here, and they'll really be a lifesaver, especially on days like today or in the winter when it's low visibility. Check out my hike of Mount Adams I did last year for that. But luckily the weather isn't too bad. Just rolling clouds, which, you know, for what it could be, isn't too bad, and the visibility is pretty good too. You can see more than past my hand, so better than I expected up here. Welcome to the summit of Mount Eisenhower. Not much to see here. Big cairn. Views aren't very good. 60-degree views up here. On today, unfortunately, we don't have that, so just happy to be up here. I don't know how many 4,000 foot piece this makes for me. I kind of lost count, or never started counting really. I want to say like 12, 13, something like that. There's 48 in total, so just like in Colorado, people out here go for all 48. Then you can do them in the winter as well, because they're a little bit more forgiving than the 14,000 foot ones in Colorado are, but still present unique challenges. The hike up here was 5.39 miles, right at 47.7 elevation, and we're moving along pretty good. So after this, I got to figure out which one it is. It's probably that trail, I would imagine. That'll take you over to Pierce, where I'm going to go next, and we'll continue along the way here. A couple things here I was thinking about. So, number one, cotton kills. Now, in Colorado, or in drier climates, it's not as big of a deal because it's super dry. The humidity's low, things will evaporate really quickly. But when you're hiking in mountains like the Whites, the Greens, anywhere in the Northeast really, there's a lot of humidity usually. So if it rains, if it's misty, if it's cloudy like this, and you're wearing cotton and it gets wet and you're cold, things can go south really fast for you, especially if you don't have anything to change out of. So avoid wearing cotton at all costs when you're hiking, even on dry days, just in case. The other thing, which I just found out, is really more applicable to people who are visiting or hiking around here a lot. But if you get lost, if you need search and rescue in New Hampshire, you're paying for it. So in other states, other mountains, it's taxpayer money. It's basically a fund, and you know, that covers it. But here, you're paying for it. You're footing the bill. So, I mean, honestly, it's not really something to keep in mind. It's more just a FYI, because no one's going to get lost on purpose. But I think it's kind of a good policy, honestly. Kind of keeps people responsible. How well it's labeled around here, I have no idea. I heard about it, you know, through someone. Working our way over from Eisenhower to Pierce, and as you can see, it is not nice. It's been muddy on and off. This is by far the worst section we've hit. Not super deep, which is nice, but Juno's legs are a disaster. So yeah, waterproof maybe in the spring, water resistant at least, would be helpful through this section. This is your last juncture of the day, although it's not marked. Mount Pierce, sorry, the name forgot, is this way. Now, on the way down, you have two trails here. There's one on the right and one on the left, and you want to take the one on the left. Either one will kind of get you back to where you need to go, but the one on the left is a little bit more direct there. So just something to keep in mind. But this is the way up to Mount Pierce, which is shortly up here, and again, not marked on the sign here. So the Mizpah Hut, you just want to go this way. Hiking in the White Mountains isn't always glorious. It's the summit right here of Mount Pierce. Views, even on a clear day, probably wouldn't be super. Maybe that way. So I did a little bit of backtracking. I kind of got lost at a junction down there, which I just pointed out. So to the summit, it's about, I would say 7.1 conservatively, rounding off a little bit of my extra. So far we've gained about 3,200 feet of elevation. That's over 7 miles, so really not too bad. We're still in the clouds, no rain, which is awesome, and we'll be enjoying some sights that I'll point out on the way down from Mount Pierce. So far on the way down, the main difference is the water level. We're basically hiking in a running stream. Well, brook, whatever you want to call it. But it means that every foothold, along with the recent rain, is really slippery, and definitely a good idea to have waterproof or water resistant, at least, boots or shoes, because a lot of splashing up and muddy. Good times. On the way down now, you're going to be coming from the left if you've been coming from Mount Pierce, and you just keep going down here. If you want to go right, that would take you back up to another series of trails, or a longer way to Mount Pierce if you're coming up and want to add some distance. So just enjoying Gibbs Falls behind me. Very beautiful. And I'll give my wrap up here. So it's looking like it's going to be just over 10 miles round trip. I highly recommend having a map, because there's a lot of trails that stem from this parking lot and up above. So it's a really good idea to have one, whether it be on your phone or a paper one. Always good to have two, just in case. The trail on the way down from Mount Pierce was a lot muddier, a lot more loose rock and gravel, not my favorite. As far as dogs, obviously dog friendly. Try to keep them on a leash and pick up after them, obviously. That goes without saying anywhere, really. As far as difficulty, I'd say it's definitely a moderate hike with long mileage, so be prepared for that, but nothing super technical. Class high 2 maybe along the way, but nothing you need any crazy equipment for outside of your backpack. If you're bringing your papa here, expect them to get wet. It's going to be a wet day for both of you. Muddy, so maybe a towel in the car would be a good idea. Obviously it was disappointing with the lack of views, but that's kind of the nature of hiking. So, but all in all, it was a good hike. I'd say 3.5 out of 5 would be my grade for this, if you will. For a full hike review of Mount Pierce and Mount Eisenhower, you can check the link below. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe to not miss any future hike reviews.